There has been a misalignment that has been causing a lot of stress. There's been a pretty fundamental conflict between Jupiter and Chiron for almost 9 months. And in September, that all changes because these two planets are about to harmonize for nearly a year. And when they do, you are about to reach new levels of courage, self-confidence, and flourishing. Jupiter and Chiron right now are forming a square. Jupiter has just entered Leo and Chiron has just entered Taurus. They both switch signs. But this is a part of a larger planetary cycle between Jupiter and Chiron. A planetary cycle is the relationship between two or more planets in the zodiac chart. This is very similar to a new moon, full moon cycle. So we start with a conjunction, then we have a sextile, then we have a square, then we have a trine, then we have an opposition, then we have another trine again, and then this is the final square, another sextile, and then we have another conjunction. So this is like a new moon, this is like a full moon, and then we're back at a new moon again, okay? So we're talking about the relationship between Chiron and Jupiter. Since these are mid-distance planets from the Sun, Jupiter's orbit is 12 years and Chiron's orbit is 52 years. This becomes more than a personal planet, but a bridge to larger patterns affecting us as a collective. So some of you may be born with Chiron in Taurus, in which case this is your Chiron return. And we'll talk about this all in a separate video, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity to talk about the square. So in terms of the planetary cycle, we are in this position right now, this first square. This is a tension aspect in which what Jupiter is doing comes into conflict with what Chiron is doing. But before we get into that deeper, I want to talk about what this planetary cycle is all about. This planetary cycle began in 2023 at 14 degrees of Aries. I'm sure you're really tired of me talking about this degree, but it's very important. As you know, we have Saturn retrograde beginning at 14 degrees of Aries next month. There are several other synchronicities to this degree that we want to pay attention to. Several of you have mentioned that you have transits at this degree, Sun, Moon, Rising, Mars, Venus. If you do, feel free to leave us testimonials about your experiences in the comments, but this is a power degree. I also did several videos on this, which are linked in the description. So this planetary cycle is the last time that Jupiter and Chiron join together, beginning their new planetary cycle. This planetary cycle lasts till 2036, and it's a part of a very strange pattern, not strange, but interesting pattern, in which it's a 150-year pattern, in which there are 3 iterations of an Aries cycle happening between Jupiter and Chiron. So the first iteration that happened was in 1976. Then there was an iteration in 2023. That's the one we are under now until 2036. And then the last one will be in 2070. And this is important. So these cycles do not necessarily repeat in the same sign periodically like this. And the fact that there are 3 iterations within a 150-year time span really suggests that at this time we are healing, moving past energies to do with Aries, which has to do with the idea of I am. So even though Chiron has now moved out of Aries, we are still under the influence of the planetary cycle in Aries, and that planetary cycle will continue until 2036. And through that, we are going to be healing what we are in the world, how we're perceived, and how that impacts our life. Very important energy. The last planetary cycle happened in 1976, and it lasted till 1990. So you may want to look back to that time, or if you weren't alive then yet, then you can look back to media, literature, any kind of historical references to understand what that time was about. I'm a huge fan of like the early to mid 1970s. I wasn't alive then, but I'm very interested in the music and the culture of the time. And we're really showing up in a mirroring event now to those early years in the 1970s. One of the main events that happened under this conjunction was the rise of rap, which is rhythm and poetry. That's what rap stands for, and punk music. Now, both of these genres of music had pre-existing iterations, but in the 70s, they really took hold, expressing the voice of many groups of people who felt underrepresented by the top-down representation through media, corporate culture, and the government. So they didn't feel they were represented well, so they created their own art forms that expressed who they are and communicated between themselves and with others. So to me, this really embodies the energy of Chiron, Jupiter, planetary cycle in Aries as a pushback against being told what you are, go sit in the corner and just listen to what we have to say, versus this self-definition and standing up for yourself. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about what Jupiter and Chiron cycle really is about. So in October, when the first square happened of this cycle, I made a video in which I used the term stand on business, and I think that's a really good representation about the energy. So it's the stand on business transit. It's all about healing your identity, breaking away from old norms. So like expectations of how people should act or how you are expected to be, a push for independence, and a balance between autonomy and community. The idea here is to work through the energies of participation versus self-love. And you'll see that the first part of this square, which we're going to talk about next, was really about this energy. This is because Jupiter was in the sign of Cancer and it was squaring Chiron in the sign of Aries. So Chiron wanted to fight for independence, right? And Jupiter was expanding potentials of care and love in our established relationships. So this planetary cycle from 2023 through 2036 is working on all these qualities, even though the planets will change signs, and in some case several times, to refine this energy. And this refinement is a part of a larger 150-year cycle, right? So 1976, 2023, and 2070, in which we are fighting for ourselves. And intuitively, I feel like this is pushing back against a lot of the changes that we are experiencing where power is being centralized in corporations and governments. So these energies are going to be fundamental for us to be autonomous, fight for ourselves, and protect ourselves from intrusion from external forces. So there's a fundamental shift that touches upon these changes. In 2025, Jupiter and Chiron began to form a square, there you are, between Chiron in Aries and Jupiter in Cancer. This was a square that lasted right until this year, and in 2026, on July 3rd, we are experiencing the final iteration of that square. So it's lasted since October until now. This is because of how slowly they orbit. One's orbit is 52 years, another's orbit is 12. This means that they can lock in with each other, very similar to how Neptune and Pluto lock into sextiles. So this square happened alongside the alignment of Mars and Mercury. Mars and Mercury have this very interesting alignment pattern in which every few years they align multiple times in order to align what we say and how we act. Mars is how we act, Mercury is how we talk. And these alignments are necessary in order to help us move forward. That alignment lasted from October to April, so October 2025 to April 2026. And during that time is when Chiron and Jupiter form their square as well. It's an interesting synchronicity and very important. It's important because Chiron in Aries was teaching us how to stand up for ourselves, especially around sensitive topics of identity, while Jupiter in Cancer was encouraging us to open ourselves to family and love. This is very interesting, especially concerning family relationships where the stakes are high, because people were healing family struggles and then also were challenged to protect yourself. So again, I'm not trying to provoke anybody's sensitive issues, but some of you may notice this in your own experiences within your family. If your family has issues to do with harm, then this transit really provoked boundaries, where you need to let people in and where you need to protect yourself. This transit put our love for ourselves in direct balance with love for others. So you may have experienced like moments in which you were meant to decide where you stand. You were challenged to bring people in and to open your heart, while at the same time you were taught that in certain circumstances you needed to protect your heart and make sure that other people did not harm it. So this square, lasting such a long time, has continued until July 2nd, 2026. This is right now, in which Jupiter has now entered Leo on a square to Chiron that has just entered Taurus. Both transits switch signs. So suddenly both of these transits switch signs. Jupiter in Leo, Chiron in Taurus. We are going to dedicate videos to both transits separately, but I really wanted to pay attention to what's happening in these transits right now. So this is the final square in the series, in the 2025 series, in which there's a conflict of interest between what we are expanding and what we are refining, right? Jupiter wants self-love in Leo. It wants you to expand. It wants you to grow. It wants you to accept yourself. While Chiron in Taurus needs you to pay attention to physical limitations. This square that we are under right now on July 2nd is one of the biggest learning lessons of the year. It's about figuring out how to show yourself self-love, how to invest in yourself, while also paying attention to physical limitations. Physical limits are like money, your physical health, your physical abilities, all of that stuff. So it's a real balance between the two. Whatever happens now is going to extend right into the fall when we experience Grand Cross. That's going to change everything. So your timeline for this is July 2nd through September 29th, okay, of this year. And so you're supposed to focus on what you're feeling now, and on July 2nd, you're going to feel it the most. So with this change, you need to really pay attention and do your best to honor both, okay? So think about in terms of your physical limits, what you need to address. Do you need to take care of your health? Do you need to mind your money? Pay attention to those things. Situations are going to come up that are going to require you to take care of them. And then on the other hand, you're going to have this expansive self-love moment in which you feel confident, building on confidence. You want to share of yourself. These are wonderful transits together, but you have to learn how to balance them out. And then in September, we're going to go through something pretty intense that's going to change things. And then we're going to switch into that trine energy I mentioned. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit. This is when Jupiter aligns with Chiron for a whole year, and they start to work in harmony again together. So between 2025 and right now, but really September this year, you might experience some frustration, conflicts of interest. But by 2026, the end of 2026 and 2027, you're going to experience a flourishing, okay? So this is the hard part, in other words, and we're almost through it. Overall, this part of the transit, this moment when both planets change signs, is critical, because it lays the foundation for an event that's going to happen in 2029. If you're watching my videos on a regular basis, we know that 2029 just showed up in a big way under this Capricorn full moon we had. So this is a synchronicity of events that are happening together towards some kind of outcome in 2029. But there's a big life lesson that will happen in November 2029 that is directly connected to how you handle this shift right now. Self-love and physical limits, Jupiter square Chiron. Okay, so learn this very well. I don't mean to lecture, but I really want to stress this. And this energy is going to be very successful. So let's talk about what the square is in September that's going to change everything. So I changed my mind a little bit. We'll do the Grand Cross next, but I want to do some channeling on the material we've covered. So we're caught up to the present time, what we're working on. First, I'm going to pick some cards from the Bral Talej. So we have Fight. As you can see, I got a smaller whiteboard so I can show you the cards better. We have Fight. We have Justice, which is Libra, Truth, Justice. And then we have Thankfulness. And then we have Glory, Victory, number 37. And then we have Writing. Okay, let's pick one more. And Knowledge. Okay. So this is for the energy leading up to now, specifically the square, right? The Chiron square that we've been under since October 2025 to now. What's the message? And this is going to probably carry us through right until September 29th when we have that Grand Cross and something big is going to happen. I'll tell you guys about that next. There was a fight, tension, people disagreed. This may have involved family members. I get the sense there was a standoff, and the standoff is always really toxic because it's like, who has more power? That's what I get. Who has more power in the situation? What side has more people? It's like when arguments degenerate to insults. When it gets to that level, then you know that essentially any constructive aspect of the conflict is gone. So I guess I get the sense that there was kind of a lot of anxiety around the issue. Concern, stress. Someone felt like they were the odd one out. It was an unfair balance of power. And most likely the core of the Chiron and Aries energy, right? That's what it was about. Coming into conflict with Jupiter, in which healthy patterns were coming in, healthy relationships. It's a weird thing when you have your heart open, right? Well, at the same time, you must protect yourself. The truth came out in a situation. I'm not sure if it was spoken or it became self-evident, but the truth came out. And this was very lucky, okay? It could have gone very badly, but it came out okay. And the truth may have been suppressed. Again, power dynamics, right? Holding truth as a power move. So withholding, holding truth, gatekeeping, right? So all of these things were happening and you didn't have control over it. You may have been the odd one out against a group of people. Family resonates the strongest, but this could be at work too, at school, all of these types of places, me versus them, right? And the only way that they held power was to manipulate. Well, the truth came out and that led to clarity, the obvious. So it was kind of like a restitution of your personhood. Now, the interesting cards here are Writing and Knowledge. And I picked an extra card, even though I felt like writing was kind of the end of it. Like I thought writing, I'm like, okay, I just wanted to see if something else came up. But to me, like writing leads to knowledge, right? But I think that process is internal to free yourself, right? From those destructive narratives. They were projected onto you. So I'm not sure if you're writing right now or if you've been communicating about your experiences, but it's kind of like an introspective processing of all of that's been happening. And that's a part of your healing process. That's very important right now. Okay, so let's talk about the Grand Cross a little bit because it's really important. Okay, so Grand Cross is going to be an event in which Pluto, right here, and Chiron, which returns back to Aries in the fall. Mars in Leo at exactly the same degree that Jupiter is in July 2026. And Mercury at the end of Libra, beginning of Scorpio, form this massive grand cross. This is going to be a turning point between the squares we just looked at and 2026 and 2027. You can't see this in this chart, but the same cradle formation that Jupiter is forming with the outer planets, Mars is forming with the outer planets here. However, this grand cross is much more immediate and much more powerful breakthrough moment. Under this transit, Mercury initiates some kind of disclosure of secrets. Do you notice this card that we got in the last part? Justice, Truth in Libra. Mercury in Libra discloses secrets. So when I got that card, I knew this astrology before we got here. So I was like, oh, this is interesting because this is the actual transformation point. A square can become intensely powerful to change things. So a long-term pattern, such as the 2025 October square until now, until September 2026, transforms under this aspect or in parallel to grand trines that are going, not grand trines, sorry, trines that are going to form in 2026 to 2027. So this disclosure of secrets, Mars pushing ahead in Leo, okay? These signs are the most affected. Libra, Scorpio, end of Libra, beginning of Scorpio. Aries, okay? Leo, and Aquarius, Pluto. Massive standoff in the sky. Mercury discloses secrets, end of gatekeeping information, being set from restrictions, and Mars giving you courage to act. This sets the stage for Chiron in Aries because it retrogrades back into Aries in the fall, and Jupiter in Leo, both fire signs. And that's what we're going to look at right now. This is when they lock in. Oh, before we move on, I just want to highlight, notice that Jupiter is at 19 degrees of Leo. This is where Venus is under the full moon on June 29th, 2026. And this is the position of the eclipse, the solar eclipse, on August 12th, 2026. So Jupiter is in this critical degree, 20 degrees of Leo, under this big grand cross. So expanding self-love, we're really locking in. This is going to be a fun one. This is where all your lessons in Chiron and Aries about protecting yourself, standing up for yourself, click in, and Jupiter really gets to working. Very, very powerful combination. So at the end of the year, after we have that grand cross, Jupiter in Leo begins to trine Chiron in Aries. And this is what we've been waiting for a year. This transit allows for continued growth and personal expansion. It's integrating the lessons of the last 8-9 years when Chiron was in Aries. This is about fighting for yourself, not literal fighting, but just standing on business. It strengthens courage, it gives energy, and increases ability of self-expression. This is when this energy comes in really handy. The self-processing. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to publish anything. It just means that, I picked up the wrong card, but writing and knowledge. It just means that self-awareness that you achieve through self-expression really becomes your narrative, your story arc, right? This is when your trust in yourself expands and grows, and this is where you will flourish. So all those lessons of Chiron and Aries about how you're not good enough because of XYZ, you've probably likely got really good at addressing them. And now with Jupiter and Leo, the desire to expand and the world welcoming you, you really want to assert yourself in whatever thing that is important to you. So this transit lasts for a long time too. Like I said, they kind of lock into one another over longer periods of time. So we have an iteration of the exact trine in December 12th, 2026, and January 3rd, 2027. But there's one more iteration of this event in August 2027. This is when Jupiter moves into Virgo and Chiron stays in Taurus. This is a similar change to what we are experiencing now, where both planets change signs, except here only one planet does. So both planets are in Earth signs and they're aligning together. The lesson and confidence that you've built through the transit between 2026 and 2027, really between 2025 and 2027, you put to good use under 2027 transit. This is when you need to show off. And by show off, I mean work really hard. Sorry. You will have to work really hard and apply yourself with all the effort that you've gained, combining the skill with the self-confidence, right? And I wanted to say that you learned, but it's really that you earned because you worked for your self-confidence, right? You've applied, you've tested it, you stuck up against opposition. You had to show yourself. So it's a earned self-confidence that you're going to apply and combine that with your skills. So this is going to be a very intense part of that transit, but still working well together because it's that trine energy, working really, really well to assert ourselves. Okay, so here is our final transit that I want to talk about. This is an opposition. So in terms of our planetary cycle, it's the midpoint of this planetary cycle, the middle part, like a full moon. And this is when Jupiter is in Scorpio. You see Jupiter in Scorpio there, and Chiron is still in Taurus. Chiron's going to be in Taurus for a minute. So an opposition effect can be tense. And in this case, it traces back to July 2026. Right now, it echoes the themes of the square between Jupiter in Leo and Chiron in Taurus. Let me explain why. Under Jupiter in Leo, there's a desire to be seen and express self-love, okay? But when Jupiter enters into Scorpio, things have changed. Energy's changed. And for people holding on to the past, Scorpio is a fixed sign. That means it doesn't like to change. If people are still holding on to the ambition of Jupiter in Leo, that's going to be tough. So the lessons that you learn under Jupiter in Leo, you really want to integrate now so that when this transit happens on November 11th, 2029, and things have changed, you're not pushing back into the past. You're meant to integrate the tension that is happening between Jupiter in Leo and Chiron in Taurus. So this is, remember, money limits and our personal desire to be seen and self-love. If you're trying to live for the past with Jupiter in Scorpio, you may make poor financial decisions to make it happen. This is like investing in the wrong thing, taking a financial risk on investing in yourself. So when Jupiter is in Leo and Chiron is in Aries, which is going to be December, January, those two iterations, investment in yourself, putting financial backing into your own projects, that's what you're supposed to do. But if you're working in this energy in November 2029, you may invest in the wrong thing, put money in the wrong thing, take a chance on something, take a risk to make something happen, right? Make it happen. And that's going to be a problem. And you may not see it. And that's why it's important that under this transit, Jupiter in Leo, square Chiron in Taurus, that we are under right now, you get really good with understanding your physical limits while still maintaining self-love, knowing how to let go of things when it's appropriate. I'm not trying to scare you that something's going to go bad, but I strongly, strongly believe here that if you integrate the lessons, if you learn the lessons, if you get good with the things happening in your life right now, if you don't have carryover regrets, Jupiter and Scorpio will not exacerbate them, right? And it's a long timeline. It's about 3 years. So you have lots of time to work through this energy, address any issues that come up, because events will happen, right? Events will happen that you will want. Some things you'll get, some things you won't get. And especially the things that you don't get, you have to make peace with as soon as possible and completely, so that you don't make rash decisions in 2029. And if you watched my last video, you'll know that there's a massive square to the north node from the personal planets that are personal actions and decisions also are around that time. And that's connected to the full moon we just had in June 29th, 2026. So I know I went into great detail again, but this is an important one. And I hope that you see the continuation of energy now and how the planetary cycle evolves and will impact you. And hopefully you know now how to work with this energy. I know many of you guys are waiting for all signs and they're coming. Because I was away for such a long time, there's a lot of groundwork to cover before we get into the all signs. These are things that I should have probably said in the last 6 months when I was away. So we're covering a lot of extra ground. And when we do that, then we'll be able to transition into all sign readings. Because we had to look at this arc between Jupiter and Chiron that's been happening since October 2025. So there's a lot of details there. But now that that's covered, then we can refer to it. It's easy peasy. So just sit tight. If astrology is way too intense, I do have a tarot only channel called Tarot Talk. So that's linked in the description. You can buy me a tarot deck on my Amazon or Etsy wish list to use on the channel if you like, and suggest a question, a general question. But yeah, this astrology, we're going through a lot of information, kind of backtracking a little bit, so we get all on the same page. And now that the videos are coming, then we can work our way forward, and they're going to be more concise again. Not that I was concise before, but for a long time I had to educate a lot more because the average viewer knew a lot less astrology. So just to make sure everybody was up to speed, that's what I was trying to do. But now I feel like more people understand astrology, so we can just cut to the chase. I'm also happy to announce that I've successfully colored in inappropriate parts of certain tarot cards I own. So now let's take a look at the general energy for specifically the square we are under, the Jupiter in Leo square Chiron in Aries. So remember in our first channel, we had a victory over a fight. I moved the circumstances around, but that was what it was about. It was a standoff. It wasn't like an argument. It may have led to an argument of some kind, but I feel like it was more of a power dynamic between people. So let's see a little bit more about this. We have the Two of Wands. I just zoomed in a little bit so you guys can see better. Two of Wands. We have the Five of Wands, standoff energy. This may have been at a distance where someone had extra power because they were far away. And then Ten of Cups, truth revealed, and Ten of Swords. And it was kind of finalizing an issue. It was definitely some type of truth that was blocking progress. Someone at some point had lied, had misrepresented, lied by omission. A lot of people lie by omission. They just won't say the truth or omit the important detail to set off the impression that it's one way or not the other way. Such a toxic behavior, right? But the truth is revealed or has been revealed, and now you can put things to rest, and there's happiness and reconnection with family. Remember, our real timeline involves September 29th Grand Cross. That's when Jupiter and Chiron start switching directions and begin to align in that trine more. So that Grand Cross event will likely lead to some kind of situation, whether it's with this particular situation or something else, where your called to action is to assert yourself, to stand up for yourself, say, no way. That period between December and August 2027, December 26th and August 2027 is going to be such a powerful moment, because this is when you're going to be mama bear to yourself or papa bear to yourself. You're going to be protecting your self-interest. You're going to be wanting to assert yourself. All those lessons of Chiron, since it was in Aries, you're going to feel the urge to assert yourself, and correctly, like not in a shady way at all. And we're leading up to it. So all the frustrations you've had since October 2025, those are the critical lessons that you're going to apply to dispel any lies, any dishonesty. Look at this. Look, just fell into my hand, out of my hands. Three of Swords. Very personal stuff. And then we have two come out, the High Priestess and the Last Judgment. You're going to really see very clearly if confusion is a part of your experience, you're going to see very clearly what's up. Confusion is another one of these things that liars use in order to manipulate. And then we have the Two of Cups, and then we have the Hanged Man, which is Neptune. Something about this situation you are going to have to see through and be very patient about. Even if you see the truth, you may still have to wait for possibly other family members or other people to figure things out, or maybe there's actual consequences to those people's behavior. Let's see what else. We have the Sun. Look at the little outfit on the bibi. I drew that myself. Okay, very excited. And then we have the Emperor, but very good things. Things moving forward, accepting something as it was. I have a personal feeling about this, Nine of Cups. This is something to do for many people with regard to family, where families were separated by this kind of BS, this kind of, like someone lied in the family, someone was misdirected, someone believed the wrong thing. Maybe it wasn't really lying, it was just lack of information carried across. Some families don't talk very much about personal issues, and that's a slippery slope depending on how big your family is or how much in touch you are, because if you don't talk about things, then it's very easy to misunderstand, right? So that's the kind of energy I'm picking up on. But the outcome here is beautiful. We have the Sun, the Emperor, and the Knight. You get what you want. There's reconciliation in partnerships. There is improvement, positive outcomes. You may have to wait a little bit, but that positive outcome is coming. Let's see. Let's pick some Lenormand. I'm feeling good about this. So the square was tough. The trine is nice. That is the short of it. I'll make a short about it. The square, wasn't nice. Trine is very nice. Okay, so pick one of the 5 Lenormand cards for a personal message, or we can read it together as a continuum. Let's talk about it. Let's see. So we have the Ring. There was maybe a failed engagement, failed offers, playing with someone's heart, possibly. And then we have the Bear, so a woman. The Bear is a woman's card. It represents a woman protective spirit, but it can be a man, although we're getting the High Priestess too, so the woman sees the truth. Possibly, it could be a man. I try not to gender my readings too much because, let everybody be themselves, but it leads to a positive outcome. And if you're experiencing heartbreak, here's a sign that the truth will come out, leading to some kind of improvement. There's someone, possibly a third party, who's overseeing this in the sense that maybe they find out the truth and then they get pissed on your behalf and decide to intervene. All you need is one good friend to have your back, really. So you have a friend who's coming up. I did get the sense that this could be your mother. It could be like a family dynamic or an in-law, like your what is it? In-law mother, stepmother, the other mother. So maybe she's the one, depending on your relationship with her, but there's a protective spirit coming in. It could be father-in-law, that's it, mother-in-law. It could be your father too, depending on your situation, an aunt, grandmother, grandfather, etc. But very protective energy coming in, straightening things out. At the center of all this is the woman. Okay, there's Miss Thing. And then we have the over top of the Emperor, Last Judgment. I feel like somebody's dignity is being restored under this. So sometimes we get smeared, especially as women, sorry guys, but women, a real way in which women fight is to smear each other, right? So somebody's dignity could be undermined. Women are very underhanded. Some women are very underhanded. So this to me kind of stinks of an underhanded situation, where one woman's dignity is smeared and then they weaponize that in order to undermine her, So I think that is going to be restored. And then we have the Path, which allows you to opt. I feel like, suddenly the road is opening wide and there's different options, but there are delays that are consequences of whatever happened. And then we have the Child, okay? This could be having a child in certain respects, or a path towards a child, or something involving a child, but definitely an improvement in circumstances. This could be a choice for a new beginning too. Now that you're free and you don't have to push against the same old, now you can just blossom and be yourself. Yeah, I get the energy, like there could be people holding someone back or trying to hold someone back with deception and lying. It could have been a lot of gaslighting. It could have lasted years. And this is a way that society, the patriarchy, families, people try to contain, especially strong women, right? So if you're experiencing this, it's probably because you had strength. And through this whole process, and hopefully you're writing about it or getting in touch with it some way within yourself to break down the narratives that they projected at you. Okay, so let's see the Light Seekers Tarot a little bit more. I'm really happy with this so far, but we have Three of Swords again. So you probably moved from a period of intense heartbreak, some kind of sadness about an issue, like real betrayal. And when you feel that heartbreak, that too is weaponized sometimes in order to prevent people from acting, right? They'll break your heart in order to prevent you from thinking clearly. So it can be a strategy too by certain people. And then we have the Devil, which could be Capricorn, depending. If it's a Capricorn, don't interpret it as like the devil, but it could be someone, you could have come across someone, you could have had like a relationship that was super manipulative. It could have been a relationship that pretended to be a relationship, but there were very ulterior motives behind it. If it's a Capricorn, disregard that, but it does seem, or maybe after a broken heart, you experience some kind of gaslighting from another relationship that happens, and then you put it back together. You put the pieces back together, Two of Pentacles, step by step. You knew there was lies, but you were trying so hard to put it back together. And then and that led to a new beginning, a fresh start. You possibly have already started a relationship with someone else, or maybe you're about to, or maybe a new relationship with yourself, or maybe going back to someone who you turned down, who now you can welcome back in. It could be any one of those things. Then we have the Ten of Cups. We had the Ten of Cups again. There's definitely an awakening moment. And then we have the Chariot, full overcoming. This has to do with Cancer, the sign of Cancer. And then we have the Six of Wands, Jupiter and Leo. We're under this energy now. Powerhouse cards, the Emperor twice. We have the Emperor again. So this is reestablishing relationships, settling down. Emperor is very like established strength. So I believe this is stuff you've worked for. And then we have Death and Rebirth, and that's Scorpio and change, leading straight to change, progress, emancipation. It's not a literal ending, it's an emancipatory one. Although I do think that if I leave the whole reading on death and rebirth, people will be triggered by this. It's possible, it's a heavy card. So let's clarify it with another deck I've colored in, so we can use that now. Let's just pick some death, rebirth. Oh, that's 2029, because this is Scorpio. So you know how I told you that in 2029, you are going to have like this kind of oppositional moment to Chiron, where if you haven't processed the past, and if you're still fighting for something that was rightfully yours in 2026, then maybe you're going to lose a lot, or people who do that will lose a lot when they try to do those things. So with Scorpio, this is reminding me of Jupiter and Scorpio. Make sure to come to positive conclusions about the things that are happening now, so you don't have reserved regrets, right? You're not living in nostalgia with regret. Let's see. We have the King of Swords, Gemini, Aquarius, Libra. Even if it's unfair, right? If something happened that's unfair, even if it's unfair, come to peace with it. Then we have the High Priestess, and especially things you can't change, you have to find a good pathway to think about it. Otherwise, those things will haunt you. I'm not a forgiveness person, so I'm not going to tell you to forgive the people who hurt you, but find a mental pathway, a logical pathway to move past situations in which you've been harmed, whatever works for you. Whatever the rationale is. Do not harbor resentments for the past within you. It's going to spoil your future. So we have King of Swords, High Priestess, We have the devil again, so Capricorn energy is showing up a lot. And then we have 3 of Pentacles, and then we have the Princess of Swords, and then we have the Hanged Man. So I think one of the lessons, because Hanged Man came up again, is the delays that you are experiencing. Make sure that you're careful with how complacent you are to them. Continue to work against the delays that are happening that are sometimes out of your control, and push towards, at least in a different direction, keep pushing towards some kind of outcome, some kind of conclusion. Okay, so I have a rule that I try not to leave these readings on difficult cards because there are people going through lots of different things and I just don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. So for me, Hanged Man is one of these things. It's a liminal card. So depending on the type of situation someone's going through, it could be triggering. So let's clarify that a little bit. And be careful of people wasting your time. We have win or lose, 5 of Swords. Yeah, don't fight for, how do I say this? Don't fight at any cost, okay? For like any cost to win. Then we have the Master, the Devil, Capricorn energy all over this. You may be dealing with a highly manipulative person or a person who will say and do anything to win. 6 of Wands, believe and succeed. I feel like step away from manipulative people. If you're dealing with a Capricorn, this is not the energy here. But if you're dealing with anybody else than someone who has lots of Capricorn placements, focus on yourself, push forward. Complementary people will show up in your life. Then we have the heart chakra and we have the Emperor again. So Aries energy is very strong here. Emperor has shown up 3 times now. I think it's like, don't get caught up on people messing with you when there's real tangible things coming for you. And then we have joy and stability, 4 of Wands. This could include marriage. So it could be a relationship that manipulated you in the past. Don't be under its spell with resentment. You don't have to forgive them, but don't let it ruin your future. Double down on yourself, particularly between December and August 2027, December 26th and August 2027. Open your heart. There is someone around you, and it leads to a lot of the things that you've been fighting for anyway, which is 4 of Wands, togetherness, happiness, family. And I'm happy to leave it at that, right? So I hope you enjoyed this. Sorry if it ran long again, but we'll work on this. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to make the energy real, and we'll talk soon. Take care. Bye.